All right, a little bit more on a Dewalt DC546. This is that what they call a cordless adhesive gun. You can do caulking with it. Okay, there's no law against using it for caulking. It's just that it has the extra power in this little gear mechanism to work with these adhesive tubes right here. And I don't know if you can see that compared to my hand, but this is a lot bigger than a regular caulking gun thing. So what happens when you buy tubes of, let's say, construction adhesive, like this is the PL375 construction adhesive, pretty standard stuff from Loctite. Another really common brand is Liquid Nails. Really good stuff for building a lot of stuff. And what you get out of this is when you buy a tube of that for, let's say, $2 to $5 over at Home Depot or something, most of what you're paying for is the cardboard, the tube, the little tip, not so much on the stuff inside. So if you can get it in the bigger tubes, you get more of the actual stuff for the money. And so it's more economical if you're using a lot of it to buy it in the bigger tubes. And the reason being is the tube that has, I think, almost 3 times as much stuff in it, because realize you're talking about the length of the tube is only a little bit longer, but then you're 3.14 times pi for the diameter of the tube, and that's where you get all that extra glue. The other thing is that with a little hand crank thing, you can only go so fast before it kind of wears out your fingers. And on these, because it's powered, you can dispense all that glue in a hurry. And you'd be surprised at how much of that glue you go through when you start using it in volume. But it's not super expensive, and in the RV industry, it's really important to have, because stuff that screws and nails can eventually work their way loose. Stuff that's glued, not really. And so you see it a lot in the manufactured home industry too. In our handyman projects, stuff that I do, there's a lot of stuff where I know that if I glue something and then nail it, it doesn't matter after a week or two, because the nails only held it long enough for the glue to set, and then it's just not going anywhere. So like in that gate project in the earlier part of the video, I used the glue to shore up some of the outer wood on that gate because it really needed to maintain the appearance of the older wood on the outside of the gate. So now it's the older wood with just a little bit of glue showing. Do a little bit of sanding on that. And the glue is sandable once it's hardened. It won't totally sand down like, let's say, true wood filler, but it is sandable. The thing is, and you can kind of see inside of this tube, what happens is the plunger can bypass some of the glue in the tube, because it takes a lot of pressure to get that moving, especially in colder weather, and you get a little bit of bypass on that. If the bypass gets too bad, then what happens is a whole lot of glue starts to bypass and jam up in this whole gearing mechanism. And the way this is made, there's no way of pulling that apart. There's 2 triggers here. And so what happens is, this is the trigger that activates and pushes the glue. This is the trigger that disconnects the gearing mechanism and allows you to cock this thing back. And it's not really spring loaded. It kind of goes on that little gearing mechanism. But what you can't do is, there's no reversing gear. You can't power the thing backward that I can tell. There was a... Oh, wait, yeah, there is a lever here. You can power the thing backward. The problem is, it just gets that stuff jammed up in the gearing even worse. So what happens is, you end up having to run that gearing thing back and forth where you can clean it. You have to let the stuff harden for just a little bit so you can get it out with pliers. And then once it hardens up around here, it kind of stays that way. But these things aren't really as solid as they need to be, so it's okay to let some of that glue harden on there to give it a little more strength. But you can see what's happened up around the gearing. And then every once in a while, this has to be kind of cleaned and rounded with a sander or something, because you want it to be a little bit larger than stock. Okay, it's okay to have a little buildup on there to grab in the edges of that thing, instead of pointing it and then allowing more pass through. So this is a tool that definitely has its quirks, and I bought this one used. I'm not sure if I would go and buy it new. I'll be entirely honest with you. I'm not sure if I would do that. Let me grab a battery here real quick, because I gotta show. There's also a speed adjustment here at the back. Okay, little speed adjustment here. So let's see here what's going on. I've got to get that trigger. So that's as fast as that goes, and what it does is it kicks back a little bit to keep the glue from coming out of the tip once you've let up on the trigger. That doesn't look fast, but it's actually going to be dispensing a lot of glue. Again, 3.14 times the length and diameter of this thing. That's actually going to shoot a lot of glue out. Let's see what happens when I reverse that. Yeah, that's not really reverse. It's just a lock to keep this thing from dispensing glue. Let's say if it's bouncing around your toolbox. The only way to get this thing out is you pull the upper trigger, start pulling back on this, and that can be pretty hard. You got to use a little strength on that. The other thing is it's normal for this to be rotatable, and it needs to be a little bit loose. It tightens up as soon as the glue starts getting on that thing. And of course there's a little bayonet for repuncturing these things. Although once you pop a tube of the glue, you pretty much want to use the entire tube of glue. That's just how that thing's going to work. So it's a Dewalt, uses the XRP batteries. I don't seem to have any diminishment in performance on this when I use the smaller batteries too. It just, I happen to have a bunch of this style. Dewalt DC546. As far as how I would rate this piece of equipment, 3 out of 5 stars. It has its quirks, but there's really nothing else comparable on the market either. So I don't think there's a tool out there comparable that I would give 5 out of 5 stars, just because of the nature of the way all this goes. It saves you money only on the economy of volume if you're doing a lot of gluing. Saves you a little trouble, but on small handyman projects, sometimes you can find that cleaning it can be a lot of a hassle, slows things down. But if you're doing a lot of repair stuff, kind of nice to have around.